Many thanks for joining us on Just the Facts on Ebru Africa TV. I'm Kamene Goro, and it is an absolute pleasure to have you here with us tonight as we delve into a topic that we have been discussing for the past 3 weeks. You might have noticed Just the Facts happens to have talked about the security situation in the country after we've had a succession of brutal attacks, internal and external. And we have managed to deal with the political intonations and elements of the security crisis, the perpetual security crisis in the country. We've dealt with the technical matters, security policies and mechanisms. But in talking about what the country is facing, today we're going to discuss the social aspects of the insecurity crisis on the country. Now in studio with me, I have two remarkable guests that will introduce themselves. But before we get to that, I want you to have a look at this story. Beginning of 2014, a relatively calm country, a recovery period from the horrendous Westgate attack that occurred in September 2013. But the calm was to be cut short just as we saw the face of April. On the first of the fourth month, 6 people were killed and dozens more injured after terrorists exploded bombs at 2 separate locations about 300 meters apart in Eastleigh area. An attack that would later lead to a controversial operation targeting illegal immigrants and criminals in the business hub. The operation, dubbed Operation Usalama Watch, which received praise and ridicule in equal measure, saw more than 80 people of the Somali origin deported back to their country.
Ethnic profiling must stop, and the sufferings of people of Somali origin, I must say the word Somali origin, must stop.
But we also made it very clear that any action being taken by the government must not be seen to be directed at a particular ethnic community.
Scores of detainees are being held under deplorable and inhuman conditions, with little, if any, access to basic provisions.
However, the deportation of the illegal immigrants, which was a plot by the government to root out criminals, did more harm than good. The number of attacks escalated. 2 weeks after the Eastleigh raids, a terrorist car bomb exploded in Nairobi's Pangani area, killing 4 people. On the 4th of May, barely 2 weeks after the Pangani blast, 2 commuter buses were bombed simultaneously along the Thika superhighway, leaving at least 3 people dead and 62 others injured. And even before the Pangani blast sank in, the terrorists hit again, this time Gikomba Market being the target. 2 improvised explosive devices were detonated in the sprawling Gikomba Market, killing 10 people and leaving scores injured.
Kuna watu kama 4 hivi wamechukuliwa, wengine wamelipuliwa tumbo, wengine kichwa. Sasa unajua wengine hata hawajisikii, ni kumaanisha ni kama wameenda, lakini wengine wameenda kama hawajielewi kabisa.
2 blasts occurred simultaneously. They are improvised explosive devices, and the material you see here. Some people are saying that it was connected. No, our experts have said that it's not connected, although we suffered some injuries, those people who were about that matatu. So all in all, this is another act, but Kenyans should remain calm.
On the night of June the 16th, around 50 heavily armed gunmen drove into the town of Mpeketoni in Lamu County, randomly shooting civilians, and ended up killing 48 people, an attack that the president and other security bosses termed as political.
To those political actors, I relay to you the disappointment of the people of this country in those who think that leadership is a sport. Those of you given to ill thought, intemperate, and reckless speech and conduct are now on notice that there will be accountability in accordance with the law.
Those engaging in incitement of public will be firmly dealt with in accordance with the law. The politicians are hereby warned to desist from inciting the public.
And to confirm that they indeed meant business, the militants struck again, this time taking advantage of a rather disjointed security organ. On the night of the 5th and 6th of July 2014, heavily armed gunmen attacked the Kenyan villages of Hindi in Lamu County and Gamba in Tana River County. At least 29 people were killed in the attacks.
People that were attacked are actually up-country people, and most of them are Christians. So none of the otherwise was attacked. Because we are confirming from the manifest, from the past, that the number of people that were in that past were about 60, and only a rapid of what we have given, about 28 or 29 or so.
They have been in the radar of our intelligence agencies and are known their bases, which are actually in the border of Somalia and Kenya.
Since then, Lamu County has observed a heavy security presence, with the then Inspector General of Police imposing a 6 to 6 curfew in the area amidst protests from many.
Meanwhile, public transport in the area will be moving unarmed escorts to ensure that maximum security of persons are provided for.
As more energy continued to be directed to the country's coastal area, the terrorists changed tactic. Mandera County became their playing ground. Members of the Al-Shabaab armed group hijacked a bus in Mandera and killed 28 non-Muslims on board after singling them out from the rest of the passengers.
Following the Mandera bus attack, our security forces initiated emergency action. They subsequently managed to identify, follow, and strike the perpetrators of this senseless murder. As we mourn the fallen, I reiterate the government's commitment to assure the safety and security of every Kenyan wherever they are and at all times.
An attack that led to major protests in the streets of Nairobi and the social media as well. The protest, dubbed Occupy Harambee Avenue, was meant to mount pressure on President Uhuru Kenyatta to fire Inspector General of Police David Kimayo and Interior Cabinet Secretary Joseph Olelenku.
The only person who can fix this problem is the president. He could fire his appointee Olelenku or start proceedings to remove Kimayo, preferably both. In any developed country at this point in time, these individuals, not only would they have been dismissed, but also resigned.
The government has failed to offer security for the people of Kenya. So we think that the people in the security machinery should go home and new people should take over. That's the only way out.
Now, the latest terrorism activity that happened just yesterday night, where 36 people were massacred in a quarry in Koromei area in Mandera County, led to changes in the security docket.
I have today nominated the Honorable Major General Retired Joseph Ngaiseri as the new Cabinet Secretary for Interior and Coordination of National Government. I hope that the National Assembly will expedite the process of his vetting and approval.
But even with the changes in the security docket, questions still remain unanswered on whether the government will be able to tackle the terrorism problem once and for all. Will the replacement of police bosses have a positive effect, or was it a decision made out of the amount of pressure mounted on the government? Will the perpetrators of the heinous acts ever be brought to book? What is the government doing to address the systematic challenges facing the security sector? Will we witness a complete overhaul in our security forces? And will we see an end to blame game every time an attack occurs?
Now, you have seen a breakdown of the events that have occurred this year related to security. We've also seen the policies and solutions that were given to the security crisis in the country. In the studio with me, I have two brilliant intellectual minds, and I wouldn't do them justice by introducing them. So I want them to introduce themselves before we get straight into what we want to discuss. welcome to studio. Introduce yourself to the viewers.
Thank you so much. Also, thank you so much to the viewers. My name is Dr. Sheikh Hassan Kinywa, the Director Religious Affairs at Supreme Council of Kenya Muslims, and also a lecturer in Islamic Studies and Interfaith Studies in 4 universities in this country.
That's a lovely CV.
Thank you.
My name is Kennedy Oduor, Director at Acadia Clinical Consulting and Research. I'm also a lecturer in psychological studies issues.
Now, I want us to look at what has prompted this state of affairs in the country. You know, we have seen one of the most shocking things for Kenyans is the brutality and the violence associated with these attacks, borderline inhuman. You know, what state is society in right now to prompt or to warrant such inhuman, brutal activity? We'll start with you, Sheikh, and head to you, Mr. Oduor.
Thank you so much. I think one factor is that there is a weakness which especially some Kenyans maybe have realized in our government. And one of them, I will go straight to the issue of coordinated networking among the security agents in this country. I believe communication is very important, but in many occasions you realize that any time there is a tragedy, you listen to the president speaking, you listen to the minister's cabinet secretary speaking, you listen to the security agent speaking. They speak different things about something similar. So this shows that these people are not coordinated in one way or another.
It's inconsistent.
Inconsistent. So I think this is when people see inconsistency in communication, then it sends a message that something is wrong somewhere, so there is a gap which we can take advantage of.
Exactly. That's actually, I'm glad that you brought that up, that we can see there is a weakness. But the most important thing is not that we as Kenyans can see that there is a weakness, but that our enemies out there can see that this is a means for us to get in. Tell us about your perspective on the social state.
It's quite unfortunate that the leadership of this country has chosen to expose their belly to a very serious threat that we are facing, which is an external aggression towards the Kenyan populace. And the president and his team has continually chosen not to address this issue with as a matter of urgency, secondly, with the speed that they need to, and thirdly, with the intelligence that the Kenyan government actually has at their disposal. So one of the reasons why I think this thing is escalating is because the president has chosen, either by default or through misguided opinions, not to respond to the real issues that are bedeviling our security structures in the country.
I understand that. We saw that. Let's look at what happened just a few days ago in Korome. You know, these Kenyans were brutally murdered to the point where families are at their complete wits' end as to how they're going to deal with this. And it goes without saying that decisive action was needed. But the nature of these attacks, even if we go to what happened in Kapedo, as we say, it was an internal conflict, a long-standing conflict. What does the nature and intensity and, you know, frequency to which that we are experiencing these attacks have on the social fabric? You know, what is it going to do to the raia? You know, the common wananchi, Mr. Oduor.
It's increasing our level of intolerance with each other. It's increasing suspicion between us and our neighbors. And lastly, it's also increasing suspicion between us and the people that have the mandate to safeguard us. That is the security people.
Exactly.
That means that even if I have an information that can be able to help in thwarting pending attack, I may not be able to deliver that because we are suspicious of these people. At one point, I'm told that in Pekotoni, there was a security officer who actually helped to ship weapons into the area where which was attacked. So how am I supposed to go again and give this person information that is supposed to protect me? Secondly, I would begin to look at my brother Ishmael as a threat to me because I'm being told at the same time that Ishmael is targeting me. So why would I be at peace with Ishmael sitting next to me? Why would I be free with Ishmael seated in a coffee shop taking tea without knowing whether he's actually was the target of Ishmael. And I'm not talking of Ishmael, but the people that have been profiled.
Exactly.
Because we are being told that they are after this religious grouping.
Exactly. Profiling, which goes straight into marginalization. You're from the Supreme Council of Kenya Muslims. You people must have been under serious heat, and there is the element, as Mr. Oduor said, of, you know, profiling, which in turn turns into marginalization. You know, what is it that is not being done right? You know, what effect are we having now? Are we creating bigger rifts in our country that we can't deal with?
You know, if we talk about marginalization of Muslims, and I'm specific on Muslims in this country, it has been there since time immemorial. You look, for example, at the issue of Mandela, as you talk about. Mandela is forgotten. Mandela, in fact, some people believe that Mandela is not Kenya.
Of course.
And the reason why I'm saying this, for example, my brother Oduor, I believe you have been to Garissa. From Garissa, coming back to Kenya, what happens? You have to show your identity card to show that you are Kenya. Everyone should know this. Many people don't know, but I've gone to Garissa, and you must carry your ID going to Garissa because you'll go, but coming back to Kenya, to now, the Kenya I'm talking about, you must show your ID. The government shows that now Garissa is not part of Kenya. We had people saying that Pwani is not Kenya, Mombasa is not Kenya, and we have the MRC. MRC have a genuine case whereby they are talking about having titles to their lands. In Mandera, those who were killed some days back were from Central Province. This is something which everyone should understand. Of course, they were Christians, but they were people from Central Province in Northeastern Province, where people of Northeastern Province have nothing to eat. They have no jobs, no security there. And that is why these killings and these tragedies are happening in Northeastern, because security has not been there. And our problem is that you'll see now the government being there. You see, after one week, 2 weeks, when things have calmed down, they'll come back to Kenya in quotes, and then leave out Mandela. Now, this is the problem. You come to the issue of profiling. You find that, for example, in majengos of this country, in all majengos, you know, when we talk of majengos, we are talking of slums, literally slums. They are all occupied by Muslims. Why don't they have titles? We have been fighting for them as Supreme Council of Kenya Muslims to have their titles, but it is like deliberate that the government is not giving them titles to make sure that they continue being poor, so that they cannot have bank accounts, they cannot go and take loans from banks because they don't have the title deeds. So these people have a lot of anger in their body, and that's why something when happens, like what's happening now. I'm telling you, my sister, if the government is not careful, I'm telling you, we'll have more explosions in all parts of this country.
I understand the element of negligence, you know, that the government fails to deal with the element of social discontent. These people have been marginalized. They don't feel like they're part of Kenya. They don't receive the basic services that Kenyans should receive, and it served as a perfect target. And it's very easy to be angry at a government that has neglected you from day one. Now, I want us to look at the grief aspect of this on society. And as we look at that, I want us to have a look at this story before we continue into this discussion. Let's have a look.
The cry of a family still trying to come to terms with the loss of their loved one. The unbearable pain of losing a son who was only 30 years, Bernard Masharia. Relatives describe him the best way they remember, her mother still holding on to his photos. Bernard's father, Stephen Gishoki, is still in shock. He remembers the last conversation they had with his son.
Yesterday he had spoken to me personally. I asked him about that situation because of those people who were killed in a bath, about to cheat. Then he told me it is okay. So, only surprisingly this morning, only to hear that he is not alive.
Bernard Macharia, together with 4 other young men from Chaka Township in Nyeri County, left for Mandera in search of greener pasture after having worked at Chaka quarries. Little did they know that their ambitions would be cut dead by the cruel hands of death. They were among the 36 people killed in cold blood by Al-Shabaab at the Korome Quarry.
Nikawapigia simu nikakuta ni mteja. Sasa masaa ingine kitu saa 3, huyu kijana mnaona hapa akanipigia simu akaniambia kuna ripoti mbali ameshika kutoka huko wanafanya kazi ati kuna watu wameuawa huko. Wakati nilikuja akaniambia ati amesikia wale vijana 3 wa kutoka Tharaka wamekufa, wameuawa huko.
The family of Bernard is just one among the families that are grieving the loss of their loved ones. 18 people of those killed in the Korome attack are from Nyeri County. The quarry attack comes barely 2 weeks after suspected Al-Shabaab militia attacked a bus that was traveling to Nairobi, killing another 28 people.
We've seen the video, we've seen the wailing, we've seen the grief, we've seen the pain. It is beyond apparent. Sad thing is, just this year, this is not something new. It happens time and time and time again. How many times can this country or can citizens continue to experience that without cracking? Kennedy.
Normally, grief takes a period of 6 years. It's a full cycle for people to be able to completely say that they're moving on to the next chapter of their lives. And a family losing 2-3 people, it's devastating, and it totally emotionally wrecks them down and tears them apart, meaning that their hopes, their beacons of hope are being taken away from them, from the same people that they thought would be able to protect them. The population of this country may not be able to be forgiving as the president and the leadership thinks, because time and again we are seeing people wailing, and those of us who are watching from a distance, our heart grieves together with them. And that will ultimately unite us together at some point. And when the anger begins to boil, I don't think the country will be able to manage it at that point. Because it will not be only those people who have lost. I'll also be thinking, is it me next?
You know, what's next?
Yes, and the pain uniting us will be unmanageable at some point in this country. And that's why we need to really take conscious efforts to be able to address the pains of these people, because right now what is happening, I was at the city mortuary yesterday trying to help these people identify the bodies of their beloved ones. Nobody is even taking the initiative to give them the grief counseling that they deserve. The government is only talking of, we will be able to help them bury their loved ones. Is that all that we can do to them?
Is that enough? Sheikh?
I think, especially when the government comes up and talk of assisting people to bury their dead, then sometimes in one way or another, it looks like an assistance, but in another way, it's like an insult. Because, you know, burying means that now we are making, you know, finish up with this person. What we would like to see with the government is telling us what they are planning to see that such an event or such a tragedy will never occur again.
Exactly.
Also, these people are in grief at this particular time. We would like to hear the government, what they are planning, for example, the issue of counseling, and also what they are planning to see that those people at least come to a point of reconciling and also forgiving the people who did that. Of course, they don't know them, and many people believe that those who did that are not Kenyans. That is something which is a little bit clear, that those who perpetrated that, who did that, were not Kenyans. Maybe they crossed over to Kenya from another country. This is something the government should tell us. Are they Kenyans or non-Kenyans? But we believe they are not Kenyans. I don't believe a Kenyan can come up and kill another Kenyan just brutally as they did.
I understand what you're saying. I like that you told us that it takes 6 years to grieve. Just this year, we were doing the math this week in the newsroom, and we came to about 12, 13 attacks just this year. You can give it one tragic, talking tragic, you know, severe attack. Let's give it an attack a month, if we spread it, you know, a whole year, we have people grieving every month. You know, we started off the year with the bombing in Diani, the grenade being thrown into a club. Nobody died. There were no fatalities, but people were injured. There's the trauma. And we have a population now that will be grieving or mourning for 6 whole years. It goes without saying that it is apparent that it will reach a point where Kenyans might not be able to take it anymore. You talked about some of the factors that have created such a situation. I want to talk about how extremism, even internally, you know, let's not limit it to one thing. Let's just talk general extremism is really starting to have a holding ground in Kenya. You know, with everything that's happening in the country, you know, before something snaps, it goes without saying, where there's smoke, there's fire, you know, and we are seeing smoke. We saw it, you know, Westgate. We saw it with the successive attacks. We saw it with what happened in Kapedo. You know, we saw it in Baragoi. These happen to be very many smoke spots all over the country, and they somehow seem to be linking it together. You know, I want to ask you, is the religious extremism argument really as legitimate as people are making it, or are we forgetting the bigger picture that this is a myriad of very many problems, historical injustices, land disputes, you know, with the MRC down, not forgetting that Al-Shabaab is also in this. Sheikh.
I think in one or another, Kenyans are misusing the term terrorism, extremism, Al-Shabaab. They are misusing these terms. And the reason I'm saying this is because when you look at the way issues are currently, even when attire bursts in our country, you hear people talking about Al-Shabaab. I believe there are things which are not done by Al-Shabaab, but maybe they are our own problems, internal problems, which we Kenyans are perpetrating them. Maybe something happens somewhere. For example, the issue of Kapedo. I remember that day, some people said tomorrow that was Al-Shabaab. No, it was not Al-Shabaab. That was something different, which the government came and set it clear that was not Al-Shabaab. That was something else. So what I'm trying to say is that people are misusing a religion. But in one way or another, I think also Muslims, especially Muslim leaders, we have been attacked by the church. We have been blamed by the church. In fact, NCCK, to be specific, had a very clear, a bitter statement which actually they had after the Mandela tragedy. They had the attack. In that morning, we were somewhere on interfaith symposia, where even the Cabinet Secretary Olelenku, we invited him, and we thank God that he came. Many people came from all religious fraternity. And we talked to the church, told them, let us come together and have a general statement together to the media. I remember one of them saying, now, we are not part of this. This is an Islamic problem. It is you Muslims killing us. He was very clear telling us. And then after some time, they came from NCCK with a very bitter statement, which many media houses called me. I had to respond to it to more than 5 media houses. That statement. Because in that statement, there was something clear that they were saying that maybe Muslim leaders in this country are insincere. And they said it's as if we cooperate with the terror groups, but then pretend not to be with them. So you see, if such a statement comes from a religious body like NCCK, then it means that there is danger. In fact, there is somewhere they say that things might get to a point whereby people will need to revenge. In that statement, it's there. It's something which is published everywhere. So what I mean is that let us not misuse our religions. People should understand that Islam is very clear on issues of killing. No one is supposed to kill any human being. If the human being, the person, if a Muslim or a non-Muslim, because Quran says that وَمَنْ قَتَلَ نَفْسًا بِغَيْرِ نَفْسٍ فَكَأَنَّمَا قَتَلَ النَّاسَ جَمِيعًا. Whoever kills a soul, any soul, which has not committed something which calls for a soul to be killed, then it's as if that person has killed the entire humanity. It doesn't talk of killing a Muslim. No, it talks of killing a human being, because we are all human beings and we all have the dignity which God created us with. So we should not misuse religion. Those who are Muslims, and they do it sometimes saying that it is in the name of religion, we are telling them that is not Islam, and you are not doing it on behalf of us Muslims. That is not Islam.
We have to go to a short commercial break. That was very, very intense. Please come back for so much more in the next half of Just the Facts. Don't go anywhere. Your funeral. I hate that. Now, before we went to the break, we left on the discussion of the religious aspect or the religious factors that have been put into the entire security situation. And Sheikh Hassan said that just because some radicals are acting a particular way should not subject the entire Muslim faith to a brutal and rather unfair stereotype. Now, before we get into anything else, I want you to have a look at this story of what happened in Mandera recently as we get into the discussion. We have seen that, the grieving. Somewhere out there in the world, these families are thinking that Al-Shabaab did this, or some Muslim Christian hater decided to deprive me of my family member. How are we going to fix that? Yes, Sheikh, I understand what you said before we went to the break, that just because a particular group is acting a particular way doesn't mean that they should subject the entire faith to a very nasty stereotype and label. But it doesn't change the fact that that is what is happening on the ground. Am I right?
Very correct. One, the narrative has been the same. And unless we change the narrative, the population will still believe that, yes, Muslims did this to us. Why am I saying the narrative is the same? Because the government of the people who are managing security have actually fails to give us an explanation of what is happening. So I'm left as a citizen to be able to explain to myself what happened and then grieve at the same time.
And draw your own conclusions.
That is terrible for us as a nation, because what happened is, I will just add 1 + 1. Muslims were not killed, Christians were killed. So what is it then? In as much as Sheikh would want to disagree with that, that would be the explanation that I would get as a citizen, an ordinary citizen. Unless there is a counter explanation, then we would still want to believe that, yes, it is an interreligion fight, which it may not be, actually. Yeah. Secondly, I would want to say this. In as much as we want to downplay the idea of profiling and the religion issue, I want the Muslims community, my brother Sheikh, I want these people to come clearly and say that this is not interreligion because of ABCD. Not a blanket word that says, no, it is not. Then at the end of the day, they also give us no room to make any other deduction except the one that we already are having in our systems.
Exactly.
I think, personally, what we should do first is to regard such a situation, such a tragedy, as crime first. Because if we take it as crime, for example, we'll realize that maybe those people who killed those other ones, maybe there was something else more than religion. Maybe because we understand, as I said earlier, those people were coming from a far distant province or county from Mandera, and they were all maybe from one particular area. Maybe it was showing people that we cannot do this, but it's because we were not empowered by the government or by our community. So some other people are coming to take our jobs, and we are still looking at them. So we are killing them. So they did that, not killing Christians maybe, but they were killing people who have maybe transpassed to their areas maybe.
Yeah.
But the problem is that now those people were Christians. That is the problem.
Yeah.
So if we treat it as criminal, then it becomes clear.
We demystify that religion aspect.
Secondly, I tend to believe that maybe there are some people outside somewhere who are trying to make such events happen so that Muslims and Christians never live harmoniously, happily, peacefully again in this country. and this will be a very sudden situation. Things have started, my sister. We have countries like Nigeria. They began same way. We have Central African Republic.
Yes.
It is began same way. And as we talk, Sudan, it began same way. And what we see now is something which we cannot talk even about. I think Kenyans, we have to be on watch out.
We need a cognitive paradigm shift. It's something that I keep on saying time and time again. Yeah. And now that you've brought it up, as we look at the other countries that have been faced with, you know, similar situations, I want to talk about the development of the emotions or the social psyche. You know, we start off by marginalizing or profiling that person X is not good, or person X, because they're from community X, is not good for reason X, Y, and Z. And it starts off as fear, you know? We fear them. You think of Al-Shabaab, you draw the religious line, and you actually start to fear the Muslim faith. Then fear turns into feeling threatened, and then threatened turns into anger. And we end up with a situation exactly like you said, you know, the Central African Republic, which started off with the Seleka rebels, then we had the anti-Balaka, then back to Seleka and anti-Balaka, and we have a rather economically promising country subject to social discontent, drawn smack in the middle by the religious line. And I want to ask you, you know, in your professional and intellectual dispensations, is Kenya possibly going to face something like this? You know, a circumstance where society is so divided that it's complete anarchy. Mr. Oduor.
Unfortunately, the events that have been piling up is pointing a finger to that. Let me just bring your attention to this. Turkana and the larger Northern Rift, where the cattle rustling and the other parts of insecurity issues have been exploded, it's because of resources. And there is new discovery of resources in that area again, which should actually make this government to run so fast in trying to develop those areas and to harness the resources so that these people do not exploit the vacuum that is in existence there. Now, going back to the Lamu and the Mombasa and the coastal region, again the issue of resources. And people are just feeling like the Republican Council is feeling like we need to protect this, meaning there's a government within a government downside there. This would happen in Turkana, this would happen in other parts of the country. And then when these people finally synchronize and say that this is our region, what will happen? An axis in the middle. It will mean the government will not be able to access Mandera because Mandera will say, I'm told that there's gas exploitations in Mandera and the other parts of the region. What will they say when we finally have gas and they say, we don't want you because you're never part of us?
Yeah, we're not
we want to protect this. That's what Boko Haram is doing on the other side, the Delta. They are saying that these oil basins are ours. The government has got no stake in them. What is it doing? It's actually fueling the terrorism activities that the Boko Haram is unleashing on the population of Nigeria. There is money. Is our government listening? I think they're deeply snoring.
Sheikh Hassan.
I know when my own brother talks about this, I now remember the issue of Peketoni. We had a lot of things, speculations, but at the end of it, we realized that it was about land. People from Lamu, someone who has been living in Lamu for 1,000 years, him, the father, the grandfather, the great-grandfather, and all of them do not have title to the land they are living in. But I come from Nairobi, Hassan, Kenya. I go to Lamu, and in 5 years, I have my title deed. I'm Zungu, a foreigner coming from America or Britain, coming to Lamu, having title deed, building skyscrapers, building hotels inside the ocean. My brother and sister, this will never happen in this world because people in Lamu are grieving. People in Lamu have a lot of anger, and when it explodes, people fear, no one fears death. It reaches a point whereby you feel that I better die than continue being in this situation.
I have nothing to lose.
I have nothing to lose. And that's what happened in Peketoni. That's what was happening in Mombasa with MRC. But the government is closing eye to that. Instead of trying to solve that situation, they are now treating the MRC as terrorists. We are not supporting them, but we are saying that the government should look at some of the agenda they have, some of the issues they are raising, and start solving and coming up with solution to those problems.
I understand.
Give them the title deeds. Let them have the title deeds. As you give your people, also give the people of Lamu, give the people of Kwale. Because in Kwale we have, as we are saying, in Lamu we have the minerals. But if you go to Lamu, if you go to Kwale, you realize those people who are benefiting from those minerals are not people from Kwale. People from Kwale are still becoming poor after every day they're becoming poorer, but the ones who come from far are the ones benefiting. The government should start working on this. And that's why you saw some people in this country saying that the president should not assent to the bill on minerals, because they can see the problem.
Yeah.
We also have the issue of minerals also in Kitui and this southeastern area of Kenya. So I think the government should start looking at the issue of natural resources first. Then it will solve a lot of problems. People who don't have title deeds in this country, all of them should have titles. We have, for example, it's only that some people are good and they are peaceful. For example, you go to Karaba in Moya, just nearby. People have been there. They are on land for more than 30 years. They don't have title deeds, for sure. What's the government doing?
Small social aspects, you know, it goes back to the same thing that we were discussing within the course of the show, you know, social discontent, which happens to be the root of very many things. You know, I was telling you about the Russian revolutions. Factor number one in every single revolution, every spark that lit the fire was social discontent. And do you feel as if, you know, the government has been caught up politicking and making a show instead of dealing with the social aspects that are affecting the country? Same thing we're talking about, you know, a couple of minutes before the break, how they're so quick to bury but don't want to provide long-term substantial support to families. You know, trauma.
I would want to really speak to the Kenyan government and tell them that emotions buried alive will never die. And when they resurrect, they come out from where they were buried, it will never be managed. And that is what actually is happening. Yes, there's a disarray of issues. Look at how the government moved into the Mount Elgon and dealt with Sabauti Land Defense Force. It was a land defense force, a group that came together and said we have to protect our own region. From who? From the Ugandans who are coming and also living within them and actually were buying land and owning land. And that is why Matakwei was ruthless with people down there. The government moved in, brought sanity. We've never had any issue in that place. Do you want to give credit to Kibaki and Raila? Yes, we want to give them credit. But why is this government choosing not to address this issue? The other day when Kenyatta went to Mombasa with title deeds, I don't know what happened, because the idea was to be able to restore sanity by giving people what they're asking. Why did they not complete the process?
Politics.
It's the government giving in to the opposition that is also clueless on how to handle this nation. The opposition gives pressure without any other solution on the table, and the government comes to play a PR agenda, and then they are lost in the mix of it. And then there is nothing credible that they can say that we've achieved in the process. Ngilu has established so many other things, and there is none that she has completed so far. Or it was digitizing, or it was this, it was current land. Is there anything that this government has conclusively dealt with since they came to power?
Exactly. I understand that. And what happens to be characteristic in all the issues that face this country, even security-wise, is characteristic blame game. You know, we had what happened in Peketoni. It was established that it was land, you know. We were able to draw the links with land. And we later came to find out that it was, no, pardon me, yes, we found it was land. And then initially the government tells us, no, it's politics. It's a political agenda. You know, we have what has happened in Mandera twice now, and it's Al-Shabaab. That's what they're saying. Do we know the legitimacy of that? No. You know, we have the debate that there was intelligence. We knew it was happening. It was coming. And we always hear that post these attacks, intelligence doesn't seem to be working. We're constantly caught off guard. Anyway, I want to talk about the element of extremism actually being able to breed right now in Kenya, and what we can do to safeguard our country from some of these vices. You know, we've seen what extremism is doing across the world, you know, with IS, and we saw how IS started, the rise of IS. You know, it was a small borderline tribal conflict that grew and grew and grew. And now even the United States is having a problem with the, you know, joint force in dealing with these people. And here we have Kenya. Actually, today in the news, it emerged that apparently there are IS camps in Libya. You know, there are unsubstantiated reports to that regard. Libya has been the center of anarchy. It's very easy to establish a rebel force in that country. Kenya, we're breaking up. Slowly, slowly, we have the people down at the coast who are discontent, historical land injustices. We have those who are marginalized in northern Kenya. We have those in Nairobi who are angry and feel under constant threat. You know, we have Rift Valley just waiting for another failed electoral process before it blows up. So what's preventing us from actually being one of the victims of extremism? And in the run-up to that, what can we do to mend our social fabric to make sure that doesn't happen? We'll start with you, Sheikh, then Mr. Oduor.
Thank you so much. I think the first thing we should do, one, is return back to the trust we had among our religions. The Muslims should start trusting the Christians. The Christians should start, again, trusting Muslims. And then the Islamic teachings in our madrasas and mosques should be monitored in a way that some of our Muslim leaders who come up in the media, who come up to the mosque and incite Muslims, for sure, it is we Muslim leaders who should stand against those imams and preachers before the government does the same. And I understand when Insecurity blame us, when Insecurity attack us, they attack us because sometimes there are some Muslim scholars whom we have seen, and they have been seen all over the world, trying to incite, and or sometimes to a point of saying a Muslim should kill any Christian around, and then Muslims who are Muslim leaders, I being one of them, we were silent. I remember one time we went to Mombasa and other areas when we started speaking, for sure our life was at threat. But I think there comes a time when we should speak and we be ready to die for the cause of humanity. So I think we should start stopping those preachers who do the same. If, for example, youth or anyone sees some youth taking guns to the mosque, I am not sure if those guns, because some people say that no, the guns were planted by the government. But that's what some people are saying. We don't know. But what I'm trying to say is that can we, from today, start making sure that no mosque enters a gun. No one enters in a mosque with a gun if the gun is not licensed. Of course, there are people who have license. Those ones should go to mosque, pray with their guns, then come out because they are doing it because of security and other things. But we make sure that each mosque is secure. We make sure that no church will ever be attacked using a grenade. And what happens? Security. Police should be everywhere. The military should be everywhere to see that everyone in this country is secure. If it's in the mosque or in the church or in synagogue, we should start having peace and security in the places of prayers, then in the entire community. And I think we'll go somewhere.
Which is kind of what President Kenyatta said, one of the few profound things that he says, that it starts with us, you know?
Yes.
Ideally, I think nobody trusts the government. Pardon me, people don't trust the government. They don't trust the opposition. So who are we left to, you know, entrust our country to? And it really does, you know, boil down to us, you know. As a Muslim leader, hold the radicals accountable, you know, instill the right values. Make Islam actually come out as what it is, you know, a faith, a spiritual belief, you know. Allah, God, you know, restore the values. But Mr. Oduor, I want to get your perspectives on what we need to do with the social fabric to make sure that we don't topple over. You know, this doesn't end up like a scene out of Purge.
Yes. Very importantly, what my brother said is building the trust. we really need to work on the trust so that we can be able to move forward as a team that is committed to the cause. Number two, we really need to change the ideological frontiers that have been given to this population that is actually have nothing in their hearts, they have nothing on their hands, and they have nothing in their minds. That is a weapon of mass destruction.
Yes.
A human being who has nothing in their mind, in their heart, and their hands will be gullible to anybody else there who is willing to offer anything that they would perceive to be appealing to them. And so we need to work with all the other stakeholders to make sure that these people, even if it is putting something in their hands as we try to establish what content will drive into their minds, as the Sheikh is saying, to try to regulate the content in the madrasas, so that at least there is a uniformity of what is being pushed across. Why? Because when they go to this radicalizing imams or sheikhs, because they were empty, they live with something. And then they stand for something that they have not interrogated properly.
Yes.
And so we really need to ask ourselves, why do we have a huge population of youth that has got nothing? They have no content at all.
Yeah.
Then what do we do with them? Because if we don't address that, I've not seen any old man blowing up themselves. I've not seen all the people that have been saying that were attacked, they are describing youths who were attacking them.
Young men and women.
Yes. So what do we do with these people? Because they are our own. We don't have a dustbin for them. How do we rehabilitate them? How do we make sure that they have substance, that they can be able to look at themselves and they say, I will not go to that mosque or to that imam because I have a counter thing that I'm using for myself and for my family.
You know, I have something else.
Yes. What is that something else that not only the government, because we've been pushing the government so much, the government cannot do it to everybody. The government did not do it to me or to you.
Yeah.
But why are we not, I would want to begin by asking you and me and him, who are we mentoring? What content are we driving to that person, that neighbor, that youth, that cousin around us before they are snatched from us? Because if we don't do, these are the same people who will be posing a risk to me and to you because we left them in the hands of these people. So one, we must address the growing numbers of the youths that have nothing to do. Yes, our economy is not doing so well, but there must be some counter things. The government has, there's a lot that is happening in the counties. Unfortunately, there has been devolved corruption down there. Unfortunately, because there should be, this was supposed to be able to arrest the crisis that the national government was facing with this populace. But now, with these new people, this crop of people that have decided to be taking the chicken home to their spouses and everybody, it's also endangering, because now the people that are down there are more hopeless than they were before. If the money was supposed to come down here and there's nothing that's on our table, there are no breadcrumbs, so what are we left to do?
I understand you. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I think we've been able to really look at much more practical ways to deal with this problem. It's a problem, and you know, a problem half shared, a problem shared is half solved. You have heard it for yourself, our dear viewers, that let's not draw similarities and links that aren't really there. You know, look at the bigger picture. Your neighbor is not your enemy so long as you know who your neighbor is. You know, let's start with me and you, instill the right values in our society so that as a country we are in collaborative custody of our nation, of our home. You know, let's see how to influence each other positively, and above anything else, let us stand united and not against each other. There are problems, they need to be addressed, but let's start addressing them between the two of us before we can look at any supreme power to deal with the problems facing our home. It was Just the Facts where the brilliant minds meet. I'm Kamene Goro. It was an absolute pleasure to have you here with us tonight. Up until next time, do have yourself a lovely, blessed and safe night.